When I was thinking about, or when I was asked to come and speak at this, it kind of makes you a little bit nervous. Because when I look out, certainly I see the parents, but when I see the kids out there, the students in school, it makes you a little bit nervous because you realize, and especially after I read what I read about them in the books, that they're going to be doctors and lawyers and statisticians and nurse practitioners, that these are going to be our leaders within this community, maybe within this county, within this state. Many of them maybe will be leaders within this country. And hopefully, if some of these students get the opportunity to study abroad, which if you ever get that chance to leave this country and do some studying, you may be a leader around the world. And so when I thought about that, I thought about, well, you've done some great work so far in your educational career, but you still got a lot of work to go, right? How many of you are ready to graduate from high school today? How many are ready to graduate from college, right? No? All right. So if you think about it, you've got about another 8 years to go, at least to get a bachelor's degree, if I'm not mistaken, after this year. And I know I had some math people, because I thought I saw in the book that one person had talked about being a statistician. You're probably around 14 years old right now. Of course, I have my master's degree in math, but I'll talk in approximations, because I don't want to get myself into any trouble. But you've got over 50% of your life still to go just to get that bachelor's degree. So what I thought I'd do in this time that I have in front of you is give you maybe just a little bit of advice, and also your parents a little bit of advice on your academic career that you have over these next 8 years, because you'll be spending a lot of time doing that. The first thing I would say to all the students out there is go to every class, and not only go to class, but be ready to contribute in that class. Because the thing about education may be different than anything else that you do. You get out of it what you put into it. So as hard as you want to work, you're going to get a lot coming back to you. And so I think about this. I loved reading when I was younger. I wasn't great at it, but I loved to read. And I loved it so much because I could go to the library, and the librarian would say, look at all these books, and you can check out books from here, there, everything. And to me, I was like, oh my gosh, look at all those adventures, and look at all those things I can learn. So for example, if you have an assignment, a book report, you got to read that book that's, from the early 1900s, maybe Grapes of Wrath, or something like, something that might be challenging, maybe something by Ernest Hemingway, and you think, oh, who the heck is Ernest Hemingway? But remember, there's something to be learned inside that book. And what you do when you read that, and you get a hold of that, can really help you. I thought I read there's a couple people in there that talked about how much they like social studies. And they like that because they get to read about the past and hopefully make the future better. When you do a lot of your assignments and you think about your books that you read, that's exactly what you can do. You can read about some of the mistakes or some of the great things that people did. And then you can go out and either repeat those things or make sure that you don't repeat those things to make sure that you help move this city, country, and this world move forward. The next piece of advice I throw out to you, excuse me, is the idea of never stop learning. You are going to start, you've been learning now through 8th grade, but you're going to continue to learn forever. If you were to turn and look at your parents right now and ask them this question, and I'm not asking you to do this, right, because you got to be quiet. We're in class right now, isn't that how it works? But if you were to turn and look at your parents, how many of your parents, I bet you would say, hey, this is the job that I thought I was going to do the day I graduated from high school or the day I graduated from college? Or did this job even exist the day I graduated from high school? Because think about it. I had an aunt who was a telephone operator. A lot of students in here, do you even know what a telephone operator is? Right? Those telephone operators used to sit at a desk and then pull a cord out and then stick that cord into another spot, and then that would connect the telephone lines, and then you'd pick that up on the corner. And I know there's some people here that are old enough probably to remember the party line that everybody on your street could hear, right? Well, now that operator is no longer needed because we have cell phones and you have switches. I saw some people wanting to be computer people and network technology people. We have about 120 switches on our campus at Walter State that automatically switch that through. So that operator is no longer in existence. That operator had to learn how then to work those switches. And so it's that idea of never stop learning. If you think you know everything, you've stopped learning. So you've always got to continue to be interested, you've got to be curious, and you've got to continue to move forward. And the thing about school that's so important, every class that you take might not be exactly what you're going to be doing in your life when you get older. But remember what it's training you to do. It's training you to think. It's training you to learn. It's training you to get ready for when you're out in that workforce, to be ready to go do it. Your boss that you're going to have wants people that are innovative, wants people that can work in groups, wants people that can think and come up with solutions. So never stop learning. The next bit of advice I'll give students, and I'm also going to give this to parents, guardians, who's ever here with the student, shoot for the stars. Whatever that career is that's out there for you, you go for it. You got to put a little work into it to make it happen, but you can do it, and I know you can get it done. And I'll tell you a little personal story, maybe just about my life and what I was doing when I was going through my career. They talked about that I have my doctorate. And I got my degree in math. My master's degree was in math. And I loved math. I love numbers. Aren't they just so cool? And what's today? Does anybody know the special thing about today? That's right. It's Pi Day. It's pretty awesome. So I got to eat some pie at the college today because we had 3.1415 like ringed around a hallway up on campus. But anyway, to become a college president, you have to have a doctorate degree. Actually, typically, to become a vice president, you usually have to have a doctorate. And one of the things, if you know, to get a doctorate, you got to write a dissertation. And dissertations are long papers with a lot of words in it. And if you knew me and you knew my math, I'm not a writer. That's not what my strength was. And I remember when I was going and working on that paper, I went and I sat down and I started working on it. And I handed that paper to my dissertation chair, and she like scribbled all over it and said, "This is horrible. This isn't going to work." And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Maybe this isn't what it is for me. But you know what I said? Nope, that's not the case. I'm shooting for the stars. I'm going for it. I know I can do this. And so I just went back home, and I remember calling my wife. I called Deb on the phone because I was working on my doctorate in Chicago, and we lived about an hour and a half. I used to take a train in and out of Chicago to get there. And I had a break in class, and I was getting ready to leave, and I was out walking around. So I just kind of was wandering around Chicago. Probably it seemed like a lot of what everybody else was doing at that time because I had to get back to the train. And I remember calling her on the phone, having a tear in my eye, saying, "You know what, I think I might have wasted $12,000 on this first year of school, and I might not be able to do it." She gave me a little bit of encouragement, and I said, "You know what, that's right. I was shooting for the stars when I started this. I can continue to shoot for the stars." So when I talk about that idea of shooting for the stars, parents, when your son or daughter comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to be a surgeon," you say, "Heck yeah, I'm going to do everything I can to help you get there." Until the day you say, "You know what, maybe that being a surgeon isn't right for me. I'm going to be a nurse practitioner, or I'm going to be a lawyer, or I'm going to be a statistician," or whatever it is, you got to keep feeding their dreams. And students, you got to be willing to keep going for it. No matter what happens, you got to be willing to sacrifice. The road isn't easy when you go down that path. Which leads me to my last bit of advice I'd like to throw out to you. Kind of two pieces put together. The idea that you have 8 years, you're going to take a lot of tests, you're going to read a lot of books, you're going to sit in a lot of classes, you're going to do a lot of online coursework. 20 years ago, you would never say that, right? But you're going to do a lot of online coursework. Don't be afraid to fail. You know, I think back to that time when I handed in that paper for my dissertation. And again, when you're working on your doctorate, everything's supposed to be like A work. You can't do anything other than excellence when you're doing that. And when I got that paper back and she's like, "This ain't going to work and you're never going to make it through if you don't do better," I thought, whoa, I have failed. And I did fail on that paper. But it's okay to fail. What's not okay to do academically is to not get back in the game, not get that book back open, not get back to that assignment, not go, okay, this is what I did, and I didn't get the grade I needed on that last test, or I didn't do as good as I thought I should do on this ACT, and say, okay, what do I need to do to change, and how can I do better? A small story on that. If you know me, if you have anybody seen me, I like to run in the mornings about very early. I'm a morning person. There's nothing better than the morning, right? Because you get up, it's your day, it's your time, right, to go get them. I've been trying to do, I got this little goal, and this goal is to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I've got to run a marathon in 3 hours and 20 minutes. I've been working my tail off. I got to 3 hours and 33 minutes in December, and then I was training. I ran one this Saturday. I ran a marathon this Saturday, and I was training, getting ready for it. And I always train. If you see a guy running on 160 in an orange shirt in the morning on Thursday morning, that's me. Don't hit me. The shoulder's really big. But anyway, I got this time, I was training, I hurt myself. I didn't even know if I was going to run the marathon on Saturday. And I got a 3:52, so that's worse. 3 hours and 52 minutes of running, and I didn't get it done. But the thing is, when I finished the race, I went out there, I ran the best I could for that day, and I realized, you know what, it's okay, I failed. I'm going to be all right, because I can still run. I ran this morning, very slow, because my legs are still a little stiff. But I ran this morning, and I'm going to be able to get out there, and I'll be able to run again, and I'll get it, and it will happen. But it does take some time, so you can't quit. The last thing is this idea of not being afraid to ask for help. You know, when I called my wife, when I was struggling with that paper, as much as it was saying, oh my gosh, you know, I didn't get this thing done and I had a tear in my eye, it was also kind of that little like, hey, I need some help here. And the help really I just needed from her was to say, Tony, you know what? You said you're going to do this. I believe in you, believe in yourself, and you can get it done. The thing is with education, you are going to go down a path and it's going to be a challenge. Don't be afraid to ask for help along the way. That's why your teachers are there. That's why your counselors are there. When you go to college, I am the president of Walter State. I got to throw out a little bit of a commercial. I saw a few people that are interested in coming to Walter State in there. If you come on my campus and you need help and somebody's not there for you, come to my office. I'm there to help you. That's my job. It's my job to make sure you as a student make it to that next level. You are going to, over 8 years, things change a lot. You might not think that because you're only 13, 14 years old, but things are going to change a lot. You might have to care for your brother. You might have to care for your parent by the time you're in college. You might have a car that doesn't work all that well. We have a lot of students sometimes that have a challenge to get to school. I can tell you, back up north, I had a car that wasn't the greatest car when I went to a community college first. And this car, the story about this car was, when it got really cold, and you all Tennesseans don't understand what really cold is. Really cold up in Illinois, when the wind's blowing out of Chicago, is negative 20 degrees. Well, this car, for all of you, that's really cold. But this car wouldn't start at night if I didn't go out every 2 hours and start that car. So what I had to do is do that. Now, there was a couple nights that I was just like, I played basketball when I was in college. I'd come back from games. I was like, I'm tired. I can't do this. But you know what? I had my brother. I lived with him, and I was lucky that I lived with him. And I used to come home, and I'd say, knock on the door like, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to start my car overnight. His car started. Apparently, my parents liked him more than me. Because I was the second born. He was the firstborn, of course. So anyway, so I would knock on his door and say, hey, can you help me tomorrow? Can you take me to school? And he'd say, yeah, definitely. Whatever you need, Tony. I'm here for you. And so that's what I'm talking about. Don't be afraid to step out and ask for some help, because you're going to need it along the way. And people are there for you. There might be some people that might not be there for you right away, but keep looking. Somebody's there to help you out. So hopefully I've given you a few things to think about over the next 8 years at least of your educational career. For some of you who are going to be doctors, it's going to be more like 12, maybe 15 years. But I really hope that you take the successes that you've had to become this 4.0 student, to become this honored student. The students that I know that are going to be leaders within our community, within our country, and even in this world, that I hope you take these successes and continue to build on them, and don't be afraid to do the things you need to be successful. Thank you very much.